dream.
It's one small step for man.
I am the greatest.
You want something, go get it. Period.
Nothing is great and dandy in entrepreneurship. There's always speed bumps. At the beginning, at the middle, at the end, today, yesterday, there's always speed bumps. And you're just like a firefighter, extinguishing different fires that are coming up every day, sometimes multiple.
Danish, thank you for being here. First time recording in the studio, so I appreciate you taking the time to come over. So just to start off, when going through your entire story, I realized there's so much depth to just being an entrepreneur. Like, you're truly an engineer, you're truly an innovator. You've made some amazing things. Can you talk about when you grew up, where that came from with your parents, how it was growing up, where you grew up? Yeah.
So when you started that question, you said depth to an entrepreneur. I want to clarify one thing. Like, entrepreneurship is not running a startup itself. It's a mindset, right? So all these things come together to form an entrepreneur. You're not an entrepreneur just because you're running a startup. You're an entrepreneur because of the way you're living out your life. If you are solving problems, if the way your mind is thinking is always finding more efficient ways of making life better, that is what an entrepreneur is. It's a mindset. And in terms of my family, I think it played a big role in crafting and developing me as an entrepreneur. When we were young, my family was not very wealthy, right? So I knew from an early age the importance of money and what money can buy you, and how much savings was also very, very important to live a good quality of life. And instilling these principles from a very young age always made me think in the most efficient way of doing anything, whether that is going grocery shopping, whether that is purchasing a product, whether that is solving a problem in my engineering class. What is the most efficient, easiest, not necessarily, but the most efficient route to getting from point A to point B? And I think that's something that always happened from a very young age in my life.
Yeah. And was your father an entrepreneur, or what did he do for a living?
I think entrepreneurship, or let's say business, runs in the family. When you're a typical Pakistani Indian family, you have, let's say, a store you're running or business you're running. So from my grandfathers, they always were in business. They always owned a business or a property. And my father, he is a businessman. And I saw him sometimes make more money, sometimes make less money, depending on what he did. And knowing that your source of income is dependent upon how much you put time in, versus if you have a job which is just 9 to 5, you're just expected to go there and you have a set income. So there's little to no risk.
There's a lot of weight in your shoulders when, like, you're in your father's position. Yeah. I like going back to the first part though. Is that why you got into the engineering and, I mean, AI as well? I mean, that's what we'll talk about in a sec, your whole app. It's like, that's a major thing of just making stuff more efficient and more convenient, especially for that end consumer with Aura, your app. Yeah.
I think, that's why I went into engineering. I always want to build stuff. Versus I thought business school, you don't build stuff, right? Maybe business models you build, but engineering, you really build stuff. In my mechanical engineering classes, one of the clubs I was part of was a Drexel Hyperloop thing. And we built a Hyperloop and we presented it to Elon Musk and the SpaceX team. That is what real building is, in my opinion, not disregarding all other types of building and value creation. I just wanted that tangible building of stuff that helps improve other people's lives.
And I mean, that was one of them, which I was going to bring up, the Hyperloop competition, which I want to hear more about that. but you also did the Boeing case competition. You went to a Google, was a big data marketing conference. The NASA challenge was making space gloves. Like, what was it like starting with the Hyperloop and then all those other ones? Did they add up, and did you learn something to apply to the next?
You always have to be out there. I live by the philosophy, don't leave any stone unturned. So I turn everything in my whatever I see. I love turning stuff up and seeing if there's any valuable things there. And of course, if you are always out there, there'll be many things that don't lead to any value creation, and that's okay. You only find out by doing everything. And so during my college years, I did everything. I was part of multiple clubs. I was part of multiple competitions like the Boeing and the NASA one you mentioned. Always putting myself out there, not knowing and not intending for something beautiful to come out, but just doing it for the sake of doing, because I love doing stuff that is outside of my traditional degree, because that's where the learning happens. I know many of my other friends who are just busy with their college credits, and that's okay. But I found much of my learning, much of my self-development come from outside of my college credits by participating in these things. So if there's
I love that.
any college students, high school students listening to this, do your extracurriculars, spend time, think of it as its own credit hours, and spend block hours to do those things every single week.
Yeah, I can relate to that, and that resonates, because when I came here, I used to do a lot of things when I was younger, but I had to find myself again. And now it's more so entrepreneurship. But before that, I was in the water. I had no idea. I had no life vest. I felt like I was drowning. But I had a remedy for that by tasting everything and trying everything. I felt like I joined every club possible. For yourself, there was one club in particular that helped. And can you talk about like Toastmasters and how influential that was, the gateway to making what you have now?
Yeah. So during one of my internships, one of my manager pulled me aside and she's like, Danish, you can be the smartest engineer in the room, but if you don't learn how to present confidently and clearly, you're putting a ceiling on your head. And I'm like, really? I just gave a great presentation. I thought presentations are things you just build a PowerPoint deck and present. You don't need skills to present well. And clearly she saw something lacking in me. And that lacking meant she, according to her, that I was not going to become a leader or a manager. And I said, what should I do? And she's like, go join this club called Toastmasters. Now, Drexel did not have that club. UPenn had it across the street. So I went to the UPenn Toastmasters club religiously, week after week. And then I realized with some effort, this is a learnable skill. You're not born a great speaker. Anyone can learn to communicate effectively and confidently. And back at work, I felt like I'd broken through my glass ceiling. I was getting more buy-in for my ideas, more airtime with senior decision makers. So it was not just a soft skill. It was a real crucial business skill that everyone should have, not just people who are client-facing. Doesn't mean that if you're a salesperson, you need to be a good speaker. Even as an engineer, you're doing internal presentations. You're always influencing people, always trying to get buy-in for your ideas. So it's so critical of a skill that it changed my life. It changed my career trajectory.
Yeah, and did you end up creating a Toastmasters at Drexel?
Yeah, because I would tell all my friends, let's go to UPenn for the Toastmasters. And they're like, oh, it's far away, or I'm busy. I'm like, okay, let's form a club at Drexel.
More efficient. No more efficient way.
More efficient, right? For getting people here. And we did. We went through the formal approval process. What we realized was that 4 years ago, there was a Drexel Toastmasters Club. I don't know who began it, but it was already in the system. But it was dead club. So we restarted that club. And I just met the leadership team of the current club, I think last month, and it's still going on well. It feels really good when you start something and then it has legs of its own and it continues.
Yeah, keeping it sustainable. So can you talk about one of or a couple of the most important things you learned from public speaking? Like, what are like a bullet list of items of why or how you can be a good public speaker? And I feel like one, it's just like a major belief in yourself and talking about stuff you actually care about.
So I heard two questions there. Why great communicator and what and how to do that. So why Things like I mentioned, getting more buy-in for your ideas. There's an author, I think, Daniel Pink, he wrote something to do with sales. And he's like, every human being is in sales. We're always selling. Whether that's trying to convince your dad to buy you a car or something, you're always selling. And this is such a crucial skill that can help change your life. So why? You can get whatever you want in life just by communicating. Now, what to do is a little bit longer than that. The crucial skill is practice. Practice makes perfect. A lot of people think that they might spend X amount of hours doing a course or a workshop and they'll get better. It doesn't work like that. This is like a muscle that you need to build. Just like you go to the gym consistently, consistency is key in your communication skills as well. You can't just expect that you have a big presentation next week and you'll study and practice and you'll get better. No, this requires weeks and months and years to get better. And the other beauty is there is no finish line. You can always get better. You only stop getting better if you tell yourself, I'm good enough. And there is no good enough. I have spoken with leaders, executives, speakers, and they still practice and they still feel that they can still get better.
Yeah, and I feel like that goes beyond the scope of just public speaking. We were talking outside just before. You think you achieve something, but there's 90 other things that are going wrong in your eyes, and you have to fix them. So the great thing about entrepreneurship is there's no complacency or stagnancy, that's a word, whatsoever. And I think that's the beauty of it, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then the one thing I realized with you, one of my favorite quotes, Richard Branson said, if you're not creating a business out of frustration, then you're doing something wrong. So you scratched your own itch. You created this club. You became a better public speaker. And then you created a product for it.
Yeah. But before that, I tried a bunch of other stuff. Toastmasters was just one of them. I would practice with my roommate a lot. So Parithor, she was my roommate, who is now my co-founder. He was Orai for me. He was the person who would give me feedback.
He was your AI assistant.
He was my AI assistant. I would practice in front of a mirror. At least that's one place I had someone who thought I was good. I would watch all these courses on YouTube and LinkedIn Learning, and I did a lot of stuff. And I asked myself, what if there was just one way? Why do you have to do so many things to go from fear to confidence? What if there was just one way, the most efficient way to go from point A to point B,
there you go,
which is fear to confidence? And that is what it sparked the creation of Orai.
And I didn't realize this till you said it in a speech or interview that I was listening to the other day, but it's Oral AI.
Oral Artificial Intelligence.
Who came up with that name?
One of our advisors. His name is Saba Karim. We were just frustrated with our old name. We used to be called Oratio. I came up with that, which was Latin for speech. And a lot of people could not pronounce it. They were like, Oratio or O with a ratio. What is this? And we just got tired of that name. And then we were really actively searching for a new name. And then once I just got a text from one of our advisors, Saba, he's like, Danish, call me. I think I got it. And we discussed it and it clicked. And it was 4 letters. It's good to have a 4-letter name. And that was it.
Yeah. And then how did you first go about, was it a lot of testing and like a lot of like primary data primary data with getting like research on, do people have a need for this or like would they benefit from this?
I think you can know that without doing any primary data research.
Really?
Right. Because as you grow up, you've always heard this, everyone has heard this thing that 70% of the people fear.
Yeah, the biggest fear in the world, public speaking.
Public speaking over death. And so it's more like a common knowledge that people are afraid of this thing. And then you do some research and you find more stats around the same thing. And there's so many articles around public speaking, around the fear of public speaking, how much you can improve by getting better and what you can get by becoming better. And so there was not much primary research involved because we had already been to Toastmasters. We already knew how much people were working on this skill and how to actually work on it. So we just started creating the product. In Toastmasters, you go up and speak and someone gives you feedback on your ums and ahs. Well, let's build an AI algorithm that can track your ums and ahs and give you that feedback right on your mobile device in your own privacy without anyone judging you. And that was it, without any research.
Yeah, there's no friction too. I think that's the biggest thing. Like, it's something that should be emphasized, and no judgment. Like, because even if you had the Toastmasters, you had someone that seemed like it was no judgment, but it's still doing it with another human being. Like, you think about Venmo. The reason it was created was because the founders out to dinner, they felt weird giving cash to other people. And they're like, that's too much friction. All right, let's make it more efficient, A to B easier. So that's like a click for me, that what you're doing now with.
And I've heard that a lot, where people tell me, Danish, I want to get better in public speaking, but that involves speaking to public.
Yeah.
And it's scary to speak to public. I need somewhere to start. And when they find out about Aurai, they're like, oh my God, you just created that first stepping stone to speak better in public. So thank you for that. So I hear all this a lot of times.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing too. It's like, people always say, like, oh, thank you for helping me do this. But it's like, we were just an instrument in helping you get there. Like, you had to do a majority of the work. So I think that's like a little thing I always think about.
Yeah, I say that Aurai is just a catalyst that helps you practice. Because at the beginning I mentioned, practice is what makes perfect. Aurai just facilitates the practice, gives you a safe space to practice. That is it.
Yeah.
The feedback is like a bonus, it's like a candy. But without the feedback, as long as you're practicing, as long as you're vocalizing your words on your lips and your tongues, you are going to get better. That is it.
Everything's great and dandy at this point. What were some of the speed bumps that were caused in the beginning?
Nothing is great and dandy in entrepreneurship. There's always speed bumps. At the beginning, at the middle, at the end, today, yesterday, there's always speed bumps. And you're just like a firefighter, extinguishing different fires that are coming up every day, sometimes multiple. And perhaps you might have those lucky days where you have more positives than negatives and you feel extremely delighted. So you're always having speed bumps on the way. In the early days, I think it was a lack of our skills and experience and not moving fast enough, because we spent many, many months trying to build this thing, but it just felt stagnant. It never felt like we were getting any closer to the hockey stick growth. Nor are we there yet, but perhaps now there's better clarity on how we can get there. Before, we were just going in this uncharted territory. We didn't know what path we would follow, what path we would create. And it was really scary and sometimes stressful.
Yeah, I think that's really fascinating. Do you think, talking about efficiency, A to B, making things easier, you think mentors are a great way to have that like expeditive learning where you don't have to make those same mistakes that they made?
Mentors are key, but you have to be careful as well. So like everything out there, there's pros and cons. Of course, as an entrepreneur, especially early stage entrepreneur, you don't know a lot of things. And if you find someone who is 1 or 2 years ahead of you, who have recently done this thing, they can provide most of the obstacles and tell you how to avoid them. That's one advice you can get from someone who is 1 or 2 years ahead of you. Then there's a completely different type of advice you'll get from those who are 5 years ahead of you. So you need to know the difference between both of them. And there is the issue of mentorship, that is, you end up trusting them sometimes more than you trust your gut feelings. And I don't want entrepreneurs to discount their gut feelings.
You need a lot of self-awareness.
Yes. And trusting your gut feeling should be the biggest source of truth for yourself. That is it.
Yeah.
If you have too many mentors, you can also start getting conflicting viewpoints. And as an entrepreneur, you get more confused. In fact, in entrepreneurship, sometimes having more data can lead to more confusion, like data paralysis. And sometimes it's okay to get some viewpoints, come back to the drawing board, and then you decide as a founding team, what is that path or trajectory you want to go after? And then the source of truth is only going to be your customers, not your mentors, not your gut feelings, but the customers. So the customer development process is so crucial.
I mean, on that side of the spectrum, though, it's like you can listen to your customers a lot, but isn't there a certain extent, like, can you get into the like real deep about, you can listen to them a little bit. Like you really should. They're the most important like change to your actual product and service. But is there a point where you shouldn't listen to them that much and just listen to your gut feeling more?
In rare cases, yes. But most of the time, I see scenarios where people just don't listen to their customers enough. That's what I've seen from most startups. Of course, you have those small minority percentage where if you listen to your customers, you would end up building a faster horse than a faster car. You'd end up building a different type of phone instead of the iPhone. So yes, there are certain types of percentage in products and services where not listening to your customers could lead to something more innovative. But I would say 90% of the time, listen to your customers. And it is not enough to just listen to how many customers you're listening to. More the merrier.
Yeah. You got to put your ego aside. Like, you just got to really open up, and you got to be accepting of all the things you're doing wrong. Like even you said in the beginning stages as entrepreneurs, you learn from your lack of experience, but then when creating the app itself, you learn from all the things that were terrible, and you just have to, it's like an onslaught of just like bad news, but it's a good cycle and a good loop to creating what you need to create. Yeah. The one thing I wanted to get into though is you talked about you didn't go fast enough. I believe you said something in an interview. You talked about slow success. Can you talk about that more and how important it is to take small steps over time?
In the startup world, especially in the early stages, you shouldn't be trying to find efficiency in going from point A to point B. You should not try and find ways that are scalable. At the early stages, you do things that are non-scalable.
Really?
Yes. So yes, I'm contradicting a little bit in terms of what I said at the very beginning about efficiency. But at the very beginning of an early stage startup, you are doing things that don't scale. For example, you're talking to as many customers as you can. That is not a scalable process. When you look at the founding story of the Airbnb founders, they were going to every single host. That's not something that is scalable. But you do things that are non-scalable at the early stages to find all the data points that you can get around your customer, around your problem you're solving, around the problem solution fit. Yes. So that's
a really good point.
Very crucial.
Yeah.
So founders make the big mistake. Oh, this is not scalable. Oh, this is not a big enough market. No, it doesn't matter. Stop thinking of the platform that you're going to build tomorrow. Think of what you're going to build today to solve a problem and how you're going to make money from that. And money is so crucial. And we can talk about money as well.
I want to get into that real quick in a sec. But the one thing I really wanted to bring up was the fact, you just said it. We'll get back to it. It'll come back to me. But can you talk about like oxygen or cash being oxygen for the business and how important the cash is in the beginning?
I've also seen a lot of founders think that they can delay the process of making money. And they tell themselves, oh, I'm having an impact. I'm creating something of value. I'm trying to build a foundation for my business. And tomorrow I'll make money. No. The primary purpose of a business is making money. And don't think of that as a bad thing. Making money is not a bad thing. People sometimes put a negative connotation on making money. Money is, in my opinion, a good correlation towards value creation. I feel
it's viable.
I feel it is viable. It is a sign, a tangible sign that you are creating something of value. If there is no exchange of value, meaning you're providing a service or a product, and in return, your customer is not providing you something in return, you are not creating something of value, in my opinion. Something of value that someone would pay something to you in return for. Maybe it's like a vitamin that you're creating and they're okay with that. So finding out ways of making money is so crucial. And I think there are just two ways of making money. There are two paths that entrepreneurs can take. One is find out how to make money in your first 3 months. Or number two, your social networking company or a very viral thing that you can sustain yourself on ads down the road. But 90+% of businesses fall in the first category, which is how do you make money today?
That totally flips like a lot of people's mindsets upside down, because they always think in the beginning, and a lot of people talk about now, it's like, what value and impact are you creating? But if you think about the way you put it, it's like if people would pay money for this, that's such a funnel and avenue to help you create an actual product. It's just amazing to me. I never really thought about it that way. And that just opens up like a floodgate of ideas for me.
Yeah. For example, for us, we started off as a B2C app to help students improve their communication skills. Because a lot of business school students were doing presentations, engineering students were doing presentations, students were applying for job interviews. And we said, we'll make this app. And we realized that, yes, it provided value, but it was not valuable enough for someone to pay. And that really helps you pressure test your problem, solution, market fit, because it's so critical. There's so many factors involved in value creation that if that persona is not able to pay you for the value you're creating for them, you just realize that's the wrong place to go. If I didn't pressure test pricing at the very beginning and I just provided this value to these students for a year and thinking that, oh, after 12 months, I'm going to charge for the product, I would have hit a wall, which I could have tested in my early days. Hey, let's start pricing this thing.
Yeah. Going back, it came back to me, the previous thought. When you're small, it allows for that flexibility and that messing up or that unscalability to go door to door and to do those things. So although it might seem counterintuitive, people should really apply what you're saying and use it, because majority of people, I mean, they're probably entrepreneurs, self-starters, do things that are unscalable in the beginning, do things that just like cause you to like over and over test this process. And then over time, you'll see if it's actually viable. I love that.
Yeah. And you can do this, as you said, at the beginnings when you're not too big. And that's another thing I want to tell people. Don't grow your teams very quickly. Find the problem you're solving. Know that you have the problem that you're solving with your solution. Only then you can start growing. A lot of companies I have seen make the mistake of premature scaling, or they start off with a team of 7 people thinking they need all these people because 2 years down the line, they're going to build a platform. No, think about what you need today. You need to be as nimble as possible and as agile as possible. And perhaps 1 or 2 people are good enough to help you prove that product market fit.
People try to jump too quick or jump to something. Yeah. I realize it's a lot of focusing on the present. This whole thing is just a big meditation.
Focus on the present moment.
You got to be mindful. You got self-awareness, listening to your gut, be present as possible. What are you doing now that's creating value? Yeah. Okay, so going back to...
I want to pause there.
Yeah.
I love the exam analogy. Entrepreneurship is like meditation.
Yeah.
Don't focus on the past a lot. Don't focus on the future a lot. Focus on today, the present value creation.
To be honest, even like more macro, it's life is meditation. It's just like the more you can be aware of your strengths and weaknesses, and this is entrepreneurship too. The more you be aware of your strengths and weaknesses, the more you can apply it to your team, to being a leader, understanding yourself better, to being a better communicator. So like all of this is really just, it comes down to self-awareness too and perspective. Just like sitting and watching, observing like what is going bad, what is going good. Yeah. But going to where I now, so you guys currently, talking about the present now, you got a recent round of funding. What was it, $2.3 million from Comcast Ventures, because you're in their accelerator, correct?
And a few other VCs as well.
Okay.
And we're not part of the Comcast Ventures Accelerator. It was a Comcast NBC Universal Accelerator.
I see.
So more broader.
Okay. And I want to read a segment from a piece you put out, and then you can get into why you wrote that, the detail behind it, and like how the negotiations went down. But I love the way you said, I'm a first-time entrepreneur raising capital for the first time. The best advice I can give to others in my shoes is to come into the fundraising process knowing that you don't know a lot of things, just like being vulnerable. Also embrace the power of vulnerability. And there it is. Be humble and put on the table what you know and what you don't know honestly. The best negotiations happen when the counterpart actually comes onto your side of the table and helps you make the deal come true. And before we get into it, I feel like right now there's so much saturation in the business world that people think they know more than they actually do. You should have to be transparent and honest. Say like, I'm unsure of a lot of things. So please, I love this so much. Can you dive into what you wrote?
This is expectation setting. If you have set the expectations and lowered the bar with your, let's say, an investor or with a customer that you're selling to, and tell them, these are the cards on my table, and let's figure out a way that we can work with each other, versus thinking of them as, no, you're on the other side and I'm here and I'm trying to sell you. And then you get into all these sales tactics that really don't work for building a good relationship. When you look at the human brain, there's the new brain, the neocortex, and then there's the old brain. And when you look at a lot of research, the decision making happens in the emotional side of your brain, which is the older brain. The neocortex is where a lot of logic happens. So when you're telling someone and trying to sell them something, hey, do you have this need? Yes. Do you like my problem and do you like my solution? Yes. Can I send you the check and you buy today? No. Why do you get that? Because logic, emotion. Emotion is not built by logic. So you can have the best traction, the problem, solution, and investors like, yeah, I see the problem, I see the solution. Do you want to invest? No. I got that a lot. Yeah. And I realized, oh, I've been trying to sell this deal using logic. Let's change the game and let's sell it on emotion. And to sell on emotion, you have to connect with the person. And the connection happens even before you start discussing the deal. You meet this investor at a coffee shop, you walk in, the curtains are open. They're starting to judge you. Their emotional part of their brain is starting to think who this person is. Can I trust them? So the way you walk in, the way you smile, the way you shake their hands, the way you build the initial rapport is so crucial, and that's where the deal gets done. Everything else is just logic. It's just check boxes.
That's a good point.
But it's not sufficient. It is necessary. Logic is necessary, but it's not sufficient. Very big key here to selling anything.
Yeah, that goes back to like the whole product you have. It's like that helps so much with a team as well. Whether you're owning your own business or in a corporation, like the fact that you can get to the emotional side of things or have a personal touch, or like instead of just work, it's play as well, like really understanding the other person.
True. And that's one thing Ori solves for, which is helping you with your other 70% of your communication, which is your body language and your delivery skills. Because you can say stuff that is intelligible, but if you don't say it in a way that's confident, that is genuine, that's building credibility, you're off-putting. And Ori really helps you sound more confident, sound more genuine, sound more credible. And not just sound, but also look now with some of our computer vision technologies. That is so key.
Yeah. So less amygdala and more logic. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
More amygdala, less logic.
More amygdala. Well, amygdala, if we'll get into psychology for a sec, amygdala is more like, that's just like your initial reaction to things, where it's like acting on emotion. But like the emotion of side you're talking about is like emotional intelligence, where like you're getting deep, you have like empathy for the other person, you're connecting to them. So that's what I thought with amygdala, but you can totally swap it as well.
No, I think, and I don't know the biology, so maybe we are confusing certain stuff. But from what I recall, amygdala is the older human part, the brain.
Okay.
It is at the very center. That was the first thing that was created, and then more and more layers got added. But it is at the amygdala that I know that where emotional decisions get made, not rational decisions, but the emotional, that gut feeling. Do I trust this person? Do I want to buy from them? And that is what you want to really connect with.
Yes, you've made the deal after that first coffee sit down. Mm-hmm. It's like 10% of the work is done. Yeah, you just said check 90% of the boxes. Mm-hmm. I love that. So right now, can we take a big zoom out? You have this, you're the archetype, or you're the architect creating this service, and it's happening, it's scaling, you're learning a lot, and you're going to keep going. What is the end goal with all of this? And as we always say, like the big dream you have for what you're creating.
I think it's the same that what we started off with, which is helping anyone, anywhere in the world, become a better communicator. And that does not mean 1,000,000 lives. That means 100 million, 1,000,000,000 lives. Because everyone can improve with better communication skills. Everyone's quality of life can change if they are a better communicator. Whatever part of the world you're in. 100%. I've seen that over and over again. Quality of life changes if you can become a more confident and credible communicator. That is what I want to see. And what a better way than using technology to really scale it in a cost-effective manner across the globe. That is what I would like to see.
Yeah. Yeah. And what is the next big step for your product itself? I know you can get into product market fit, but also if you want to touch on like the AI aspects of things and all of that.
So yeah, there's the business milestones and then there is the product milestones. In terms of product, you're always trying to improve. You're always trying to think 6 months, 12 months in advance of what your customers' needs are today. And so we have a really smart, talented product development team. I say we can build anything we can dream of. And that is so true. We have been building really groundbreaking technologies in analyzing and giving feedback on human communication. Some of the more recent things that we launched was conciseness. Can you track if people are being to the point, concise, or are they going round and round? Because that's something we heard again from customers. We would not have built that if customers didn't tell us, Danish, my team is not concise. They are not to the point. They go into a rabbit hole and then they use too many long sentences and then decisions are not being made. Okay, let's create an algorithm that can detect conciseness. And we did. So the more things that are there, and there's some more exciting stuff that are also in the product pipeline for giving more granular feedback on your communication. In terms of business, revenue, I think, is the number one milestone that you want to hit, especially when you're a venture-backed business. Revenue is something you have set with your board members and your investors. So those are some revenue goals that we have set for ourselves that we need to achieve.
And the one thing, we didn't really touch on it, but the biggest thing with you, I realized, you really are someone who taps into their network, their resources, the things around you, the way you did it with Drexel, the way you're doing it with Philadelphia. Can you give practical, pragmatic advice for people who need to leverage that skill more?
First, you need to know that you have to leverage. People think that they are independent, they don't need other people. No. If you're building something that you really want to have a dent in the universe, you need to have a team. And not just a core team, but as they say, you need a village to raise a child. And the startup is a child. It requires nurturing. It requires resources, not just from yourself, but from your extended family. And to me, Philadelphia is my family. I've grown up here after college, and I've worked in the city. I have friends here. And now I have customers, investors, mentors, all in the city. And the city has been always giving back. The more you give, the more you get back. And I would say know at the very beginning that you need to leverage all the resources that you have. It's already a hard thing. Startup world is a hard thing. Try and make it as easier as you can get. And so leveraging all the resources you have. Drexel had an incubator. We got free office space there. We took that. Then the Comcast NBC Universal powered by Techstars had their accelerator program. We applied to that and we got some more funding, mentorship, customers from that. We were part of the PSL Accelerator, Philadelphia Startup Leaders Accelerator. We got some more mentorship there, more exposure into the city. We took that. So you're always going to be taking everything you can get.
Another way of making things more efficient, easier.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think the biggest thing as well is just asking for help when you need it.
Ask for help.
Vulnerability.
Key.
Absolutely key.
You should put a poster up if you're an entrepreneur, put a poster up. Ask for help. I have seen so many people tell me, no, I can't ask. I'm like, why? I will be denied. I'll be told no. I'm like, okay. If you're not going to ask, you already have a no on the table. The no is table stakes today. You have the potential of changing that no to a yes. So don't think that by asking you're going to get a no. You already have a no today. By asking, you have the chance of changing that no into a yes. The probability can be 5%, the probability can be 90%, but you have to try.
Yeah.
It really irks me when entrepreneurs need help, but their ego comes into the way. And sometimes not just ego, but sometimes comfort. Comfort comes in the way. It's like a comfort tolerance that I need to go out of my comfort zone in order to ask this person. As entrepreneurs, you have to increase your comfort threshold. You basically should have like a very low comfort zone. Like you should be able to sleep on the floor, sleep outside, do anything you need to order to succeed. This is a hard thing.
Yeah.
Don't think you're trying to get a luxury life. If you need to crash at a roommate's couch, you have to do that in order to save money and fund your business. It is how it is.
Yeah. That's one of my favorite topics. People don't understand how hard it is. And you've gone through it. Like you have literally
It is
walked the
hard.
walk. It's hard.
It is hard. If you are going to be an entrepreneur, just know it's hard. And it's not a realization you have later. Go in knowing it is hard. There are so many entrepreneurs who speak like Gary Vee, or there are entrepreneurial books out there and their case studies that there's no overnight success. People had to go through a lot of hardship in order to be where they are. So just know it is table stake that it's going to be a hard thing. Now, do you have that perseverance? Do you have the discipline to go on that hard journey? If not, don't even attempt it. Go get that 9-to-5 job. Because if you attempt it, guarantee you're going to come out and go back to that 9-to-5 job. And you just lost 9 months of, let's say, salary.
Beautifully said. And one last question I have is, for yourself personally, I know we talked about the company, a big dream. What is your really big dream for what you want to accomplish in your life?
As an early stage founder, my dream is Orai's dream. And Orai's dream is my dream. I think it's one. I'm so engrossed that there's nothing else I think of.
All in. Burn the boats.
It is. And so the only thing I'm thinking of is, how do I help Orai get to its big dream, which is helping anyone, anywhere in the world become a better communicator. That's all I think of. And a lot of people say, Danish, so what do you think you're going to do next? I'm like, I'm not even there yet. I can't give any thought to what's going to be there in the next 2 years, 5 years. Life and the world changes so fast. It is foolish to really give a lot of thinking to what you're going to do in 5 years. Even if you're in a 9-to-5 job, you don't know where you're going to be in 5 years. You don't know where you're going to be in 10 years. Everything is changing. Everything is so fluid today.
Great point. And the one thing I thought about is just you're implementing this slogan in full. So zoom to the macro, the mainframe. Improve yourself, impact lives. You're improving yourself in full, improving your company. That's your full focus. You talked about it. Your goal is to impact lives. I mean, there's no better way to say it.
This is a very important point that about improving yourself. Yes, if you look at a startup trajectory, you have that hockey stick growth, or you're scaling your product and your company scaling, but you as an individual also has to scale. So if you're not improving yourself, you'll be booted out. You're not the right person to take the company from point where it is today to the next stepping stone. And if you don't improve yourself, you're out. Either your company is going to fail, or the people in your company is going to kick you out and replace you. So you, as a founder, or even as an early stage employee, need to know how you can be consistently improving over time. How do you improve? By going out, by being everywhere, going to networking events, learning stuff, going on LinkedIn and socializing and networking with people who might be outside of your network, talking to people, doing podcasts like this, reading books.
Yeah. What's your favorite book, by the way? What's your favorite book?
Hard to say. You read so much that you reach a point where things start interweaving and you just don't remember where you got that concept. Was it in this book? And sometimes the same 2-3 books talk about the same thing and it amplifies the messaging. So I don't have a really good or one book, but I have many books. And they're books depending on the stage you're at. So if there's an entrepreneur who asks me, what would be the book you would recommend? It depends on where you are and what challenge you're trying to solve today. Because again, it's very wrong to read something that is not going to help you today.
It's like that mentor aspect you talked about.
Exactly. You need to know what you need to solve today. Even when people reach out to me and they're like, Danish, can I interview you or can I ask you a few questions? I'm starting my startup. I'm like, okay, good. And they start asking me questions about things that are going to impact them a year from today. And I'm like, no, let's not focus there. When the time comes, you can ask me that then. But today, what is the challenge that is putting you up at night today? You're not thinking of hiring and building a team today. So why are you telling me how to build a team? Think about how you're going to solve that customer development problem today. How do you do a user interview today? How do you build an MVP? How do you do fundraising? Those are the things that you should be asking me. How do I make sure I balance my life and sleep and still manage good relationships? Those are the things you should be asking me today if you're facing those problems.
It's well said. I mean, that's words to live by. So hopefully people at least watch this once, multiple times, if so. So I just really want to go back and thank you for being here. Thank you for improving yourself to impact people, being who you are, authentic to yourself. So
Thanks for the good questions and leading a great conversation and a dialogue.